Hey, weirdos, I'm Ash.
And I'm Elena.
And this is Morbid.
This is Morbid.
It's Morbid in the morning.
It is.
How are you over there, Gwirl?
I'm good.
You're swell?
I'm swell.
You have a nice sweater on today.
I do. I have a sweater on. I have plaid pants on.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
It's nice sweater weather over here.
It's nice sweater weather.
I know we're hitting that nice November chilly willy air.
Yes, it's the time of year when my uniform is leggings, high socks, and a big old crew neck.
It's the best time of year.
It's the most wonderful time to be comfy.
Precisely. That's how the song goes.
Yeah, I feel moderately unhinged today.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
Who doesn't amongst us?
Honestly.
If you don't, there's the door. Shannon Bedore. Just kidding. I love Shannon Bedore. We have some exciting news to share with all of you guys. We are doing another Culture Fly box. If you remember, I believe it was last year that we did the last one, and you guys loved those. So we said, honey, let's do another. Honey, why don't we do another one of those? So this one is very cool. It's available for pre-order right now on the Wondery shop. There is a t-shirt. There is a little pop socket. There's a little speaker.
And the speaker is so cute.
The speaker is adorable. I love it. There's like little ear pods. And there's an LED candle. So that's exciting. You can change the colors of it.
It's like cathedral-y looking. It's very cool. The aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is available for pre-order right now on the Wondery shop. And I think they're starting to ship out on December 6th. So yeah, go get
Which
one
is
of
the
those.
best month because
I was born in that month. And we got Christmas on
But my birthday.
and Hanukkah.
My birthday.
And your birthday.
Everybody. Of course. Number one.
Number one.
Yay.
He was number one. You won't get that because you don't watch SpongeBob. Yeah, so I think that's all the bid nasty we got. You got anything to talk about?
No. Well, this is just like a little side note. John and I watched Trap the other night for fun.
And how was that?
Guys, watch Trap just for the fun.
And how was that?
I wasn't thinking everybody was being like totally truthful when they said that it was just a concert.
But they were.
It's a concert.
It's a concert.
It's a concert.
It's like the
It's M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, who is like the
right.
Here's the thing. She's great.
Good voice.
She's beautiful, amazing voice. She plays instruments and shit. Like she's very talented.
Fucking trifecta.
Didn't sign up to watch her whole concert though.
No, didn't buy tickets to a concert, to your knowledge.
It is a wily movie.
Yeah.
John and I were like, was that a fever dream?
I've heard some interesting reviews.
It goes crazy.
Yeah, my cousin went to see it in theaters. My cousin, your nephew, and he came back with not quite a rave review.
Yeah, I was shocked. It was not a good movie. But it was one of those like that you just can laugh the whole time.
Night, what's going on? Remember The Village?
That's the thing. He nails it a
Sense.
lot, but this was not one of those times.
No.
And that's okay. We can't all, bat 1,000.
You cannot win them all.
But I will say Josh Hartnett in it.
Oh, honey, Josh Hartnett.
He
is a snack.
would have played had he been given an actual character to play, he would have played it flawlessly.
Yeah.
Like I could see like when he had little moments of being able to play this like scary serial killer.
Yeah.
You were like, oh, you would have nailed that. Like he would have eaten it up.
Okay.
But he didn't get a lot.
He didn't get that. I just, whenever I think of him, I think of him in 30 Days of Night.
Yeah, he's great in that. I love him in 30 Days of Night.
Oh, the end of that movie will literally make me sob.
That movie.
That's a great movie.
That movie.
We covered it on Scream.
We did.
Probably a few months ago at this point. Maybe last year. I don't really
Yeah, it was my pick, right?
Yeah, it had to have been last year at this point because I think it was cold out when we covered it.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Whoa. But yeah, that's a great fucking movie. Josh Hartnett is great. Trap is not great, but go watch it
anyway.
Yeah, and we just covered a good movie on Screen recently.
Such a good movie.
If you're looking for something to listen to that's just kind of like lighthearted and fun, We covered Fresh on Scream. It was Ash's pick.
That movie is so good. It came out in 2022. It only came out on Hulu.
Yeah.
I feel like that movie should have had like a box office release.
I feel like it should have a re-release, to be quite honest. I feel like it needs a theatrical release. That movie is fucking great.
Especially right now. I'm like, damn, you guys should release that shit.
Can we like get to it's one of those movies. I was shocked by how much I like this movie.
Yeah.
I made John watch it and he loved it too.
I know. I was happy to hear that he also enjoyed it.
I had a feeling he would love it. But I'm telling you, if you guys have slept on Fresh,
wake up.
Go watch Fresh and let's get it. I feel like it needs way more attention. Sebastian Stan in that movie. Oh my God. Holy shit. Daisy, is it Edgers?
Edgar Jones.
She fucking phenomenal.
Yeah. And I think it's Mimi Cave who directed it.
Mimi Cave. I was like, holy shit, Mimi Cave.
It was her directorial debut. Yeah,
Blew
Mimi Cave.
my mind.
Yeah, crazy.
Blew my damn mind. So that's my go watch one for fun and one because it's a fucking kick-ass movie.
Oh, and then just really quickly, I think maybe I mentioned it briefly, but go watch Woman of the Hour. It was Anna Kendrick's directorial debut, and I thought that movie was really good.
It's gotten great reviews.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet, but people didn't quite enjoy it, but I really, really loved it.
Really, I haven't watched it yet, so I won't tell you if I like it or not. But
yeah, go watch it.
I'm interested. Tell you that much.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, that's just a little recommendations.
Recommendation corner.
Chat. Yeah.
I love that. I love movies.
Yeah.
Even when they're not great. Oh my God, wait, hold on. Oh my God, did I finally get this? Hold up. Remember this morning I walked into you and I said, do you ever get one of those tiny little eyelashes in your eye and you can't find it and it just is stabbing you? I think I might have just got it.
Look at you.
Oh, wow. That was a relief.
You can see clearly now the lash is gone.
Is she? Hold on. What the fuck? It wasn't even, it's on my fingernail now. It was like a little tiny piece of hair. The tiniest little piece. Sorry, everybody.
Fun.
That was really bothering me. All right. So let's get into it.
That was like OG, just trailing off.
OG trail off. It really was. Leave it in. Let's get on with it, though. Yeah. We've got a story to talk about today. I found this case really interesting, and I think you will too.
I'm excited.
This is unfortunately a murder. It is the murder of Cheryl Perveler, but lots of moving pieces in this case. And it starts a little before midnight on April 20th, 1968. A man named John Miller and his wife got home to the Castillion Apartments in Burbank, California, parked their car. They were just going to walk, from the car inside, finish their night. But as they were walking to their apartment, they noticed their neighbor, 22-year-old Cheryl Perveler, sitting in her car with the engine running and the headlights still on. So they were like, what's going on with her over there? So they approached the car to go check on Cheryl, who they found sitting in the front seat, barely conscious, eyes closed, gasping for air, and bleeding heavily from her head and chest.
Oh, jeez.
So the Millers ran inside to call the police, who arrived a short time later. And as they waited for the paramedics, Mr. Miller looked at his watch, and it was exactly 11:30 p.m. It turned out that Cheryl had been shot twice in the head, just above her left ear, and she also had one large wound across her chest, which the coroner would later suspect happened when she actually tried to push the barrel of the gun away as it was fired. There were also 7 half-inch gashes on her forehead and on the top of her head that were made by a blunt object, possibly like the butt of a pistol. So somebody was like beating her and had shot her multiple times. Jesus. Her face and her head were absolutely covered with blood, which had also pooled in the driver's seat and on the floor of the car. So paramedics arrived to the scene. They rushed Cheryl to the Burbank Hospital, but the attention that she needed went way beyond the capabilities of Burbank Hospital. So they ended up having to transfer her to the Los Angeles County Hospital, but she unfortunately died as she was being prepped for surgery. So she almost lived.
Holy shit.
Which I wish she had anyways, but I so wish that she had because there is some unanswered questions when it comes to this case.
Interesting.
But by the time Detective Lieutenant Dave McIntyre arrived to the Castillion Apartments, the other residents of the building had all assembled into the parking lot to say, what the fuck was going on, to see what was happening. Upon his first surveying of the scene, he noticed a .32 caliber automatic pistol lying on the passenger seat that didn't appear to have been fired. And inscribed on one side of the barrel was the word love and the other Paul. So Love Paul, which was a reference to Cheryl's husband of only 7 weeks, Paul Perveler. The gun was loaded with 5 rounds. Also on the front seat was Cheryl's purse, which had $35 in it, which today would be a little more than $300, which is fucking insane.
Yeah.
To think that
wild.
$35 back then is worth $300
That's
today.
nuts.
But on the floor of the driver's seat, investigators also discovered two 25 caliber shells, and outside the car toward the rear right tire, they found two unfired 25 caliber rounds as well. Now, this struck them as particularly strange because Cheryl had been shot from the left side of the vehicle, meaning that at some point her killer had stood by the other side of the car, probably reloading or loading the gun. Which is just kind of strange.
Yeah.
As far as McIntyre could tell, if this had been a robbery or like even an attempted carjacking, it had obviously gone terribly wrong. The shooter had not only left a ton of money in the car, but had also left the car itself, which was a really nice car. It was a 1968, so new, yellow Jaguar, worth obviously a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, the attack would have been really violent for an attempted robbery. Like, if the killer was only trying to get away, any one of Cheryl's wounds that she sustained would have given them a sufficient opportunity to dip and run out of the scene. So McIntyre and several other investigators fanned out across the lot to interview neighbors, and they started with John Miller. And John Miller was a part of the couple who had first found her. Mm-hmm. He explained that he and his wife had just got home, walking to their apartment, and they saw Cheryl's car with the engine running, the radio playing, and the lights on. And actually, at first, they didn't think anybody was even in the car. I think they just heard the music and saw that the car was on. And the closer they got, he realized that Cheryl was in the front seat. And he was like, she was sitting in a really strange position. And then he said he could hear a, quote, terrible sound, a low guttural moan.
Oh.
Because she's like, I'm pretty sure, like choking on her own blood.
That's awful.
So after calling for help, he ran to another neighbor, Larry, I think it's Beauregard, his apartment, and said, come and help. The girl in 17 has been beaten up real bad. And to his surprise, that neighbor responded by saying, you mean she's been shot? Which is like,
I'm sorry, what?
What?
Why would you assume that?
Well, when they questioned the other neighbors, investigators were quite surprised to learn that multiple neighbors heard gunshots, but not one of them called the police.
What the fuck?
Not one of them.
We see this so often,
It's crazy. Larry Beauregard explained that he'd been in his home, in his living room, a little after 11 p.m. when he heard what he thought was a gunshot. And then a few moments passed and he heard two more. Because remember, she was shot three times. You hear 3 gunshots. Detectives presumed that the first shot caused the wound to Cheryl's chest and the other 2 gunshots were to her head. One of the neighbors looked out his window after hearing the shots as well, and he said what he described as a man of average height and weight, wearing a white hooded sweatshirt, but he never got a look at the person's face. Otherwise, no one had seen anything, and the crime scene was not really offering much up for clues.
What the fuck?
So they were like, where do we start here?
What is going on?
So while officers continued to speak with the residents of the Castillion Apartments, which I guess you would never want to live amongst any of them, can you imagine?
Yeah, all of your neighbors are just like,
Well, I guess that was gunshots.
Right?
So while they did that, Lieutenants Ernest Vandergrift and Warren King went to the Perveler's apartment where they found Cheryl's husband, Paul, who would come home after getting a message from Mrs. Miller. The investigators found him to be in a state of shock, or at least stunned silence, as, you would kind of expect in that situation.
Yeah.
Paul said he actually gave his wife $50 that morning to go grocery shopping, and then he left for work. And he said later that night, about an hour before she was killed, Cheryl actually stopped into his bar in Sunderland where he was working, and they had a drink together. They finished their drink. He said he walked her out to the car, and then he went back inside, and that was the last time he had seen her alive. Now, these facts were confirmed with the other staff at the bar that evening. And when they asked whether there was anybody who might want his wife dead, Paul said, yes, that German fellow, referring to a man that Cheryl had dated before she and Paul got married. But he said other than that, he couldn't think of anybody else, just one ex-boyfriend. So a quick background check on Cheryl revealed really nothing indicating that her life would be cut so tragically short. She was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1945. And she'd always been a strong-willed and determined girl. By all accounts, everybody loved Cheryl. She didn't have an enemy on this earth. She was always a physically active child. She had a really strong interest in sports from an early age, and she actually carried that into adulthood. And when she graduated from high school, she wanted to move out to Los Angeles, hoping to break into the film industry. So at first, when she moved out there, she tried her hand on an office job, but it just didn't hold her interest for long. And so she moved on and she answered an ad for a job as an aerobics instructor at the Aristocratic Spa.
Damn. What a name.
I know. I was like,
The Aristocratic Spa.
We're all aristocratic up in here. So she loved her job at the spa. She was also really, really good at it. She quickly got promoted, first to assistant manager and then manager of another location. And a short time after moving to LA, she ended up meeting Paul, who, like I said, owned 2 bars in the city. He was charming, he was attentive, and it wasn't long before they fell in love, and they actually got married pretty quickly. And then just 7 months later, Cheryl was dead.
Damn.
So given that nothing appeared to be missing from the car and Cheryl was still wearing all her expensive jewelry, investigators ruled out robbery pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't robbery, then that meant somebody had literally gone to the apartments that night just to kill Cheryl.
Yeah, and like she doesn't have any enemies, so what the fuck?
Who would that be? And by the look of things, her killer was not a professional. The brutality and the attack implied something personal, and the killer didn't stop until he was pretty certain that she wouldn't live. So as a matter of practice, investigators also ran a simple background check on Paul, and what came back was pretty fucking surprising. Paul had only purchased his 2 bars within the last 2 years, and before that, he had worked for a short time at an insurance industry, selling life insurance, which is interesting. And before that, he actually spent a number of years as an officer with the LAPD, so he was previously one of them.
Oh.
Yeah. It turned out that just a few years into his tenure with LAPD, Paul was discharged from his position after he helped a friend's roommate obtain an abortion, which was illegal at the time. Yeah. So although he wasn't disciplined for the illegal activity, he was let go from the position because they didn't want any kind of scandal or bad press. So his work history was pretty surprising to detectives, but even more surprising was his involvement in other crimes, serious crimes, including murder.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a serious crime.
One of the most serious, I would say. On December 11th, 1966, the Los Angeles Fire Department responded to a call about a house fire in the neighborhood of El Sereno. And when firefighters arrived, the back of the house was completely engulfed in flames. Damn. So they immediately began searching the house for survivors and found in the front room the body of 27-year-old Marlon Cromwell, the owner of the house. Now, initially, firefighters assumed that he had either passed out or died from smoke inhalation. But when they got closer to his body, they discovered that he had actually been shot 3 times in the head and 2 times in the chest. So shot 5 times, and then his house was on fire. Beside the body...
Seems suspicious.
Seems pretty fucking suspicious. Beside the body, they also discovered a towel with a ring of blood on it, which investigators would later theorize had been used kind of as like an informal silencer.
Damn.
For the gun, yeah.
Holy shit.
Now, according to fire officials, there was no reason to believe that his death was a suicide, because you're not going to shoot your own self 5 times.
No.
And the case was being invested as a homicide, but there was very little evidence at the scene to develop any leads from. So investigators theorized that the killer obviously set the fire to destroy any evidence of murder, but they had set the fire in the back room, which gave firefighters enough time to reach Cromwell's body before it was affected by the flames.
Damn.
An autopsy showed that he'd been shot 3 times in the head at close range, killing him. And then it seemed as though the killer must have stood several feet away and fired 2 more rounds into his chest to make sure he was completely expired.
This is so chaotic.
It is, immediately.
Like this, I just realized how many times I've been like, damn. And I'm like, it's just like shocking.
But rightfully so.
I'm like,
wow. The dams are apropos.
The dams just keep on coming. But I'm like, wow, it's the only thing I'm like, this is so chaotic.
You know what?
Like,
they're not going to stop coming. So
holy shit.
Just live in a place of dam. You're a beaver now.
Yeah. You be beaver.
You are beaver. So like Cheryl, everybody who knew Marlon Cromwell insisted he didn't have any enemies in life. Everybody loved him.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, he was just a pretty regular dude. He worked as a stock clerk at a local grocery store, which he'd done since graduating high school. And otherwise, he was a really shy, quiet guy.
That's sad.
Yeah. At the time of his death, he was married to Christina Cromwell, and they had 1 child together.
Oh.
But on the day of the fire, Christina and their son were visiting Christina's mother like 150 miles away, luckily.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad they weren't there.
Me
obviously.
too. So she seemed like an unlikely suspect, but they weren't willing to rule her out entirely because they said, That's crazy.
I said, that's
Is
suspicious.
that interesting? Now, there were things about Marlon and Christina's relationship that also struck investigators as particularly odd. For one thing, they had been married for a number of years, but they got divorced and then remarried just a few months before the fire.
Oh.
Yeah. And just as
Okay.
interesting, 2 months before Marlon was killed, Christina had taken out a life insurance policy in his name in the amount of $75,000.
You know,
Damn.
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 I don't know, like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, just damn.
Just damn.
Wow. Okay.
So a quick check of Christina's background revealed that she and Paul Perveler just so happened to have been working together at the same insurance company at the time.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, Paul and Christina's workplace behavior led many of their coworkers to assume that they were carrying on a spicy affair.
Oh, no. Then go the fuck away.
Yeah, just
Together.
leave. Just leave.
Go away.
Run away together. It's shitty, but it's much less shitty than killing people.
Because everyone will be fine without you, but just move
Exactly.
on.
Well, while interviewing those coworkers, detectives learned that not too long ago, Christina had undergone a pretty serious makeover, during which she lost 75 pounds, dyed her hair blonde, got contact lenses, and capped her teeth. So she
What the fuck?
she went for it.
Yeah.
It was like a makeover scene in Clueless.
Holy shit.
Yeah, the remarkable transformation, they insisted, had been quote unquote coached by Paul, who seemed to have quite a lot of control over Christina.
Ew.
Yeah, Paul's an asshole.
Ew.
Detectives interviewed asshole Paul, who admitted that he had gone on a few dates with Christina, but he claimed there was really nothing more to their relationship than that. Never really serious.
But
I'm like, but she capped her teeth for you.
and also, like, you guys are married.
Yeah.
Like, he's just sitting there being like, yeah, we went on a few dates.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Wait, no, they're not married.
I thought they were married.
Christina and Paul, no.
No,
He's-
I mean married to other people.
yeah. Oh, they're married to other people.
That's what I mean. Like, he's
yes,
sitting
yes.
there. I'm like, why is this not hitting you the way it's hitting me?
I was like,
He's
wait, no, they're not married. I thought you thought they were
No,
married
like,
to each other.
like they are married to other people, and he is being like, we went on a few dates.
Yeah.
Like, that's something you do when you're married to other people. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, babe, there's spouses. The
Hello?
spouses, you can't just go on a date. Like, he's like
It's very much against
Just
the rules of
blowing
being a
past.
spouse.
blowing past the whole like just yeah, we went on a few dates, but like, here, whoa,
It wasn't
whoa, whoa.
serious.
I'm not even worried about if it's serious or not. You went on a date.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Everyone's so cavalier.
They really
here.
are. Well, and also, so
Damn.
damn, I
another
told you,
damn.
you are a beaver. So detectives couldn't help feeling that Paul was not telling the entire truth. They
Me
were like,
too.
interesting. They were like, damn.
I said, damn, Paul.
So they actually assigned an officer to track Paul and Christina's movements. And 2 days later, when Christina got the first payout from Marlon's insurance, the detail followed them to Las Vegas, where they checked into an expensive hotel together, racked up a very large bill. And in the 6 weeks that followed, Christina received $25,000 from the life insurance company and transferred all of that money to Paul in a series of 7 transfers, even though their relationship wasn't super serious.
There's a lot of lying
Yeah.
happening here, and bad lying.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
lying,
and
lying
at
that's
this
going to get
point,
caught.
Cheryl is still alive, and guess what, everybody? Paul doesn't even know Cheryl at this point. Paul's married to another woman at this point.
Oh my
Because correct, he
God.
is married. Sorry, I should have
is.
said that when you brought that point up.
I'm shooketh.
He is married, but not to Cheryl.
Just to another woman.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So he's been at it for a long time.
Oh, Paul
Wow.
stays at it. But yeah, so 7 months later, Paul used that money to purchase his first bar in Burbank, which he named the Grand Dutch. Now, based on their investigation, detectives in the Cromwell case theorized that following her makeover, Christina divorced Marlon and started her relationship with Paul, only to remarry Mr. Cromwell less than a year later in order to arrange for his murder and to cash out on that life insurance policy.
Cool.
Is it cash out or cash in? I feel like, do both work?
I think you can use both.
Yeah.
I would say both is fine.
Thanks. Well,
You're welcome.
unfortunately, all the evidence they had was circumstantial, and there was really no way for them to prove that either Christina or Paul was involved in the death. It just kind of looked like it.
Yeah.
According to author Ken Hurwitz, it appeared to the district attorney that even though they were the likely ones to commit this murder, it was best to wait and hope that more evidence would arrive.
Yeah.
And boy, did it. Because
Well,
remember,
it's just best to wait.
it's just best to
They
wait.
probably did it, but like, let's
Wait for more evidence.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's
like,
I guess.
okay.
Now, after learning of Paul Perveler's connection to the death of Marlon Cromwell, detectives who were investigating Cheryl's death looked for an insurance policy taken out in Cheryl's name, and they found that just a few months before her death, Paul started a policy with a $25,000 payout.
Eek.
And this policy also had a double indemnity clause, meaning it would pay double in the unlikely event of an accidental death or murder.
Oh, no.
I feel like insurance companies need to not advertise this and just have it be a happy surprise in the midst of a tragedy.
That's what I think. It's like, it's really sad. Everybody's upset. We're going through grief. And, here's a little silver lining.
Guess what?
You get more.
You got the good insurance.
But you didn't know that ahead of time.
Yes.
So we can be sure that you didn't take that into consideration when all this was going on.
Exactly. Well, while investigators continued to pursue the insurance angle, 2 detectives paid a visit to Paul's first wife, Layla, hoping to learn what kind of husband Paul had been to her, anything interesting about his past.
Oh, come on, Layla. Lay it on us.
Had never met Cheryl and actually didn't even know she existed.
Oh.
When the detectives informed her of her death. And when they told Layla that Cheryl had been killed, she started trembling and, quote, could not get her hands to be steady. She was like freaking out.
Oh.
She told the Burbank detectives that her marriage to Paul had started out like most marriages do. He was romantic, attentive. They seemed genuinely happy to be married. He seemed happy. They did have money trouble from the early days. Former girlfriend Morgan St. James said money had always been important to Paul. He wanted things that were far beyond his reach. And according to Layla, it was important to Paul that people see him as successful, which he defined in financial terms.
Okay.
He even made it a point to inform everybody that everybody he met that his cousin, Stanley Kubrick, was a wildly successful film director, hoping they would associate him with Kubrick's success.
I'm sorry. What?
Wait. You gotta say it.
Damn. What?
I told you. I told you this is quite an interesting case.
I had no idea Stanley Kubrick was going to make an appearance here.
I don't think Stanley Kubrick did either.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I don't think he had any intention of making
I think Stanley said, keep me out of this.
He said, I'm going to go make an art film by.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. However, Paul was nothing like his cousin.
It doesn't sound like it.
No.
It doesn't sound like it.
In fact, after being fired from the LAPD, he seemed to just move from one scheme to the other, just blowing his and Layla's money along the way.
Wow.
On like frivolous shit. Shortly after their wedding, that was when Layla noticed a big shift in Paul's personality. She said he became volatile and moody. He would just ignore her. Instead, he would choose to stay up late watching old movies and clean his guns, like instead of interacting with her at all.
That's a no for me.
Yeah. His indifference to Layla soon turned to anger and violence. And I just want to give a trigger warning for domestic abuse here. This is a pretty rough one. In fact, Layla reacted so physically to the news of Cheryl's death, basically because there were so many occasions where she believed that Paul was actually going to kill her.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. One afternoon, just about a year into their marriage, she went out for a few hours. And when she got home, she found that Paul was extremely drunk and he was pissed about something, like enraged. Before she could even open the driver's side door, Paul yanked the door open and was on top of her, punching her in the face over and over and screaming at her, "I'm going to kill you."
Whoa.
He then dragged her out of the car and started beating her head against the side of the car to the point where she lost consciousness. And he only stopped when he saw another car approaching. She ended up being hospitalized for several days with very, very severe injuries to her head and face, but she declined to press charges because she was afraid of Paul still, obviously. So he never faced any kind of consequences for the assault.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
Horrifying. Now, his attack on Layla seemed to come out of absolutely nowhere, but it was just the beginning of a series of events that caused her to be absolutely terrified of her husband. A month or so after the attack in the car, Layla suffered 2 serious hit and runs, like one after the other, that left her really badly injured, but luckily still alive. In one of the incidents, she recalled the driver stopping after he hit her car and looking at her in the rearview mirror, but she could only see his eyes, so she couldn't identify him.
What the fuck?
Now, despite not seeing the driver either time, she believed the hit and run incidents had definitely been orchestrated by Paul in an effort to get rid of her. And in each case, there was also an insurance policy that paid out $5,000 after each incident. So they got $10,000. Or I really should say Paul did.
Yeah.
When asked why, if she believed he was trying to kill her, did she stay with Paul for so long? She explained that she believed if she tried to leave, he would kill her at that point.
Yeah. It must be terrifying.
Yeah, of course. And as we know, that is the most dangerous time to leave an abusive partner.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, it turned out that the fear that made her stay was actually also the thing that finally convinced her to leave Paul.
Good.
Just a few weeks after that second hit and run, Paul convinced Layla to join him for a day in the mountains. And he said, we'll do some target shooting. So she reluctantly agreed to go with him. I know. She reluctantly agreed to go. But when they got into the woods, Paul just paced around for a while and never fired a shot, and then decided it was time to go home. Just abruptly.
I don't like that at all.
So at that point,
that sounds like he had intentions and he
couldn't
lost
do it.
his nerve.
100%. And that's exactly what Layla thought.
Oh, I hate that.
Said she believed that he fully intended to kill her that day.
Oh, that's horrifying.
And she knew that if she didn't leave him, it would just be a matter of days before he did get the confidence to do it. So it was also around this time that she learned of Paul's relationship with Christina Cromwell, which the courts would have deemed a justifiable reason to dissolve the marriage. So she took that opportunity and she divorced Paul.
Damn.
But also, another thing to think about here is she had to have a reason to divorce, like a justifiable reason.
She couldn't just be like, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore.
Yeah, like what?
Dumb.
So hearing Layla's descriptions of the abuse she suffered at the hands of her ex-husband, Paul, was, as far as the detectives were concerned, only further evidence of a pattern of behavior that had probably led to the death of his current wife, Cheryl. But the problem was they couldn't prove that he had anything to do with Cheryl's death. According to Ken Hurwitz, Paul walked Cheryl Perveler out to the car on the night of the murder, but his employees had never said that he left the bar for enough time to physically get to the apartment, commit the murder, and get back. So he hadn't done this.
Jesus.
Physical evidence of Paul's involvement was obviously hard to come by, but the circumstantial evidence was just piling up. 10 days after Cheryl's murder, investigators sat down with Paul's coworker, and pretty much the closest thing he had to a friend, a guy named Alan Halverson. They had actually worked together at the insurance company, and Halverson was drawn to Paul's charisma and exciting lifestyle. But the more time he spent with Paul, the more he started to see a side of Paul that few others had ever seen, save for his ex-wife, Layla. At first, Alan was evasive and pretty much seemed to be protecting Paul, telling investigators that he just knew how much Paul loved Cheryl and how he would never do anything to hurt her. But the detectives, specifically one detective named Detective King, could tell that Halverson was an empathetic person and didn't seem accustomed to lying, so he just kept pushing until Halverson finally caved. After taking a deep breath, he looked at the detectives and said he was afraid of Paul after everything he had seen and heard.
Oh, man.
According to him, Paul wasn't just involved in the attempted murders of Layla, but also several local robberies and the death of Marlon Cromwell. And he knew this all for fact.
Holy shit.
Halverson said the two men had been out at a bar drinking together and had become quite drunk, and Paul confessed that he'd killed Marlon Cromwell. Halverson said he made the remark that, quote, I killed her husband, referring to Christina Cromwell's husband.
Wow.
So the detectives could tell there was more than just fear motivating Alan Halverson's silence. Like Layla, Alan also believed that Paul would kill him if he ever said anything about the murder confession or his knowledge of the other crimes. But at the same time, he was embarrassed and ashamed for not giving the police this information sooner.
Yeah.
He told Detective King, don't ask me why I continued working for him. I can't give you a logical explanation of why I did it. So at 6:45 p.m., 4 Los Angeles police officers, armed with shotguns, entered the Grand Duke Bar and announced that they were placing Paul under arrest for the murders of Marlon Cromwell and Cheryl Perveler.
Wow.
And the attempted murder of his ex-wife, Layla Perveler.
Oh, shit.
And as they placed Paul in handcuffs and escorted him out of the car, he said, don't you guys ever give up?
Oh.
That he was just like, ugh.
Like, he's just like, oh, my God.
Like, wow.
Wow.
Shortly after midnight, a second team of officers caught up with Christina Cromwell at the apartment she shared with her sister and placed her under arrest for the murder of her husband.
Wow.
Now, the evidence against Paul and Christina was pretty much almost entirely circumstantial, but there was a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And the prosecutor from the district attorney's office, Vincent Bugliosi, decided to take a chance of that what evidence they did have would be compelling enough for a jury. When the news hit the papers the next day, the press couldn't help but draw comparisons to the popular film Double Indemnity, where a wealthy woman seduces an insurance agent and convinces him to kill her husband.
Oh, shit.
It's very similar.
I love when they're like, we can't help but look at this and say, it's the same.
It is what it is.
It's a movie.
Yeah, the United Press International described the case as the Late Show come to life.
Wow.
Saying that the Perveler case, quote, does double indemnity one better. I'm like, okay, guys, people died here
This is getting
in real
wild.
life.
Yeah, it's like, this is literal. This is real people.
Yeah.
It's not a movie script.
These are not actors. But the other aspects of the case were too good, too salacious to be ignored as far as the press was involved. Paul's previous employment as an LAPD officer, rumors of illegal abortions, and of course, his ongoing affair with Christina Cromwell, which had motivated most of the crimes. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't really know if it was his affair so much as it was the money, but yeah, it was a piece of it.
All right.
So on May 2nd, Paul and Christina were both formally charged and arraigned a short time later in district court. The judge, Joan Dempsey Clane, denied bail for both of them and remanded them to the custody of the county pending a preliminary hearing. On May 14th, Bugliosi took the case to the grand jury with a simple case, like we said, built on circumstantial evidence. The prosecutor alleged that Paul Perveler and Christina Cromwell had been carrying on an extramarital affair for years and that they had conspired to kill Layla Perveler in order to cash in on her life insurance policy. And when that plan failed, they devised a new strategy, this time targeting Marlon Cromwell. And when those insurance funds were beginning to run out, they targeted Paul's new wife, Cheryl Perveler.
Imagine being this ruthless of a human being.
When you sit there and you wonder, like, did he just plan to kill her all along? Because they were married for 7 months.
That's the thing.
And it's like, so he's dating Christina, and at the same time, is he just hunting for a woman to marry and kill?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Was there ever any love there?
Like, did he pick her specifically because he was like, oh, I can kill her?
Right.
Like,
and who killed her?
Yeah.
Who did it, actually?
Yeah.
Like, who pulled the trigger?
Holy shit.
Now, Bugliosi, like we just said, couldn't connect either of the accused to the murders directly, but the circumstantial evidence, more than 30 witness statements, and multiple bank transfers were compelling enough for the grand jury to return indictments on all charges. It was actually really unusual for a jury to indict without knowing the identity of the actual killer, but Bugliosi's strategy emphasized that, quote, those responsible for the murder stood to profit from insurance policies on the victims' lives, and thus they should be held equally as responsible as whoever did commit the murders.
Yeah.
On all counts, Paul and Christina pleaded not guilty.
Damn.
Lies.
Yeah.
Now, a trial date was set for November, and in the meantime, lawyers for Paul and Christina started petitioning the court to have the trial separated, arguing that it would be prejudicial for Christina to be tried with Paul, quote, because the greater number of counts against him. Superior Judge Pierce Young listened to both sides, but ultimately denied that motion to sever the trials.
He said, nope.
He locked those two in as co-defendants. And to make matters worse for them, after Judge Young's decision, the prosecutor's office announced that they'd be seeking the death penalty.
I mean, honestly, and again, we've gone, if you've listened to this, you know our stances on the whole thing.
Yeah, we're gray.
Like, super gray, but I lean more towards being against it. If there's a case where it makes sense that they're going for it, this makes sense. Like, I can see why they were going for it here.
Yeah, same. So Paul and Christina's trial began on November 18th, 1968, which is weird because today is November 19th. Which is the very next day, but we were actually originally slated to record this yesterday.
That is weird, and that happens a lot.
That's the thing. It's something that happens so often. But, so yes, years later, prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi would make a name for himself as the prosecutor in the case against the Manson family. Say it, say it, say it, say it.
Damn. That's crazy, though.
Yeah, and subsequently as an author like yourself.
Oh my God, there's some big players in this.
I know. But at the time, because this all happened before that, he was young and pretty relatively inexperienced as a prosecutor thus far. He was green. So those two facts left many people wondering if he was the right person for the job. People were like, I don't know if this case is going to go like we want it to. But when it came time for those opening arguments, everybody was about to have egg on their face.
A big disgrace.
Yes. I don't know the rest of the words. Something all over the place. But years later...
Something all over the place.
Right? Kicking
awesome.
your can all over the place? Is it kicking your can?
Yeah. Mud on your face, you big disgrace, kicking your can all over the place.
Why does that feel wrong?
I don't know.
I guess your can is your butt.
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
I like that.
Yeah, we were right. Okay, I second-guessed myself. I need to stop doing that.
I second-guessed myself, too. Well, years later, Bugliosi himself would write, I sometimes waive an opening statement, feeling that it takes the edge off my witness's testimony when the jury has already heard the story from me. But in this case, he understood that the timeline was long and pretty complicated. The evidence was not always explicit in its importance, and the killer was still unknown. So he decided to take some time to clarify these finer points of the case and told the jury that the deaths of Marlon Cromwell and Cheryl Perveler had, quote, all the earmarks of planned executions. He continued saying, we intend to prove by very strong circumstantial evidence that Paul Perveler was responsible for the murder of his wife, Cheryl, emphasizing the word responsible to mean it was him who set things in motion, not necessarily pulled the trigger,
yes,
but he is responsible here.
Interesting.
So lawyers for the defense, on the other hand, they actually chose to waive their opening statements, which I didn't know was an option.
I also didn't. Actually, maybe I did.
Yeah, I feel like it's not something that really pops up in our cases.
I think I knew that it was a thing. It really doesn't pop up in our cases a lot.
Yeah,
I
didn't
can't
know you
even
could.
think of one, to be honest.
But with more than 100 witnesses called and a large amount of complicated evidence, the trial dragged on for almost 3 months. So during this time, most of the public's attention was focused on Paul and Christina's behavior in the courtroom, which many people found to be in poor taste. Paul's former girlfriend, Morgan St. James, said Paul was flirting and winking with the court reporter, and Christina showed up in a miniskirt.
What?
Yeah, not really either things you want to be doing while you're on trial for murder.
Probably not.
But despite the distractions, Bugliosi stayed mostly focused on what evidence he could show to the jury to convince them of Paul's guilt. He wasn't able to prove Paul pulled the trigger in either case, obviously, but he was able to show the bank transfers that happened shortly after each murder occurred and the policy started paying out.
Oh.
And it was the timing of the murders and the transfers more than anything else that really seemed to get through to the jury, because that's hard to argue.
It is.
Like, you got
definitely
numbers
is.
in front of you.
Yeah.
But regardless of who actually committed the murders, the quick transfer of funds, 7 in total, was, according to Bugliosi, evidence that neither murder would have occurred without Paul's orchestration.
Exactly.
Now, if his strategy was focused and simple, intended to make sense to anybody on the jury, the defense had different ideas about how they should proceed. Rather than attempt to, refute the prosecution's evidence and witness statements or anything like that, lawyers for Paul and Christina attempted to place blame on each other because they each had their own set of lawyers.
There it is. I was waiting for that.
Yeah. Paul's lawyer, Mel Album, argued that Christina had orchestrated both murders in order to have Paul all to herself.
Oh.
And her lawyer argued that Christina was just another victim who'd been manipulated by Paul, which is kind of believable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, on February 15th, Bugliosi gave his closing remarks. He summarized the case for the jury as just a simple matter of murder for profit, and criticized the defense for, quote, throwing up a smokescreen around the facts of the case in order to escape into the darkness of reasonable doubt, which is poetic and correct.
Escape into the darkness.
Yeah, I love it.
If you listen to the rewatcher, it made me immediately think of Into the Darkness.
Into the darkness.
Go listen to the rewatcher.
Go listen to that show. It's great. Mel Album, meanwhile, tried to place blame on the prosecution's main witness. You might remember one, Alan Halverson.
Oh, I do.
And he argued that it was actually Halverson who had killed Cheryl.
Oh.
Not true. But after closing statements were given, the jury retired for deliberation. On February 18th, after 3 days of deliberation, they returned to announce that they found Paul Perveler guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder.
Wow.
And guilty on 1 count of attempted murder.
Wow.
Yeah, so they found him guilty across the board.
Damn.
And they found Christina Cromwell guilty of 1 count of first-degree murder as well. Vincent Bugliosi's case had been very complicated, as we know, very circumstantial, but in the end, he was able to convince that jury that each defendant had played essential roles in the deaths of their spouses, even if they didn't do the killing themselves.
That's very, very interesting.
Yeah, and as a green prosecutor at the time.
That's the thing. Like, that's very fascinating. And, I mean, he must have been very persuasive.
Oh, yeah.
With such a circumstantial case.
Yep.
To be for beyond a reasonable doubt.
I think those damn. We should just name this episode Damn. I think those transfers really spoke for themselves, and the fact that there are 2 deaths here, and there's
2
some
very
time between them,
deaths, too.
very specific, and those transfers align so perfectly.
Yeah,
it in conjunction to that timeline. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So Paul and Christina were back in court for sentencing on February 24th, 1969. And Bugliosi followed through on his earlier statements and asked the jury to sentence each of them to death for their roles in the murders. He told the jury, to Paul Perveler, the taking of a human life is like taking a drink of water.
That's scary.
That hits. Christina's attorney, David Kogas, argued that his client was, quote, not an equal partner in the slaying of Cromwell and that she went along with the crime only because she was under Perveler's Svengali influence.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pulling out the Svengali.
I know. I had to look that up. The following day, February 26th, the jury announced their decisions. For her role in the murder of her husband, Christina Cromwell was sentenced to life in prison, but she did get the eligibility for parole after 7 years.
Oh, whenever you hear life in prison and then you're like, but after 7 years, you can probably get out. It's like, what is that?
Yeah. I always think,
like,
I always
what?
said that too.
Like, what a weird, conflicting statement.
The rest of your life, unless you can
Maybe
reach the
7
hearts
years,
of the
though.
parole board in 7
Yeah.
years.
Like, wow.
As for Paul Perveler, though, they sentenced him to death in the gas chamber. Yes. Which is honestly, you have to think about how remarkable that is, because
That is remarkable.
everybody on that jury knew, like, sat there knowing that he did not actively kill Cheryl and did not mean, we don't know if he actively killed them.
But they could not technically prove that he had a actual physical hand in the act itself.
Right. But
Wow.
to sentence him to death even still is interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing. This is an interesting case.
Yeah.
But when asked for comment on the sentences, Paul told reporters it was the sentence he'd been hoping for. He said, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in prison.
Whoa.
So it was just like one final jackass.
Yeah,
it's
it's him being like, you know what?
I wanted that.
I wanted that actually, so thanks.
Like, okay, you petulant fucking child. But for those most affected by the trial, the verdicts and sentences came as obviously a significant relief. Alan Halverson and Layla Perveler, the state's two most important witnesses, actually started spending a lot of time together during the trial.
Shut up.
And they eventually got married.
Oh my God.
Because they had the bond over like this very unusual shared experience.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
I hope they had a lovely life.
It sounds like they did.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You know.
And in 1972, as you might remember, well, not saying you were alive, but
Wow.
that's not what I was saying, just because it's come up a lot. California repealed the death penalty, and all death row inmates had their sentences commuted to life in prison.
that.
Which honestly is actually hilarious to me that he was like, I wanted to go to the gas chamber.
And the state was like, oh,
psych!
you thought.
Only a few years later, too. So this meant that Paul, who had been sentenced, like we just said, to die in prison, was now eligible for parole, though, as early as 1984.
Forgot about that.
So in response to that...
I also was not alive then either.
She wasn't.
No.
Just... You might have, you were like on your way, though.
No. I'm at the end of the next year. I wasn't on my way.
I don't know how it all works.
No way.
They were thinking about you. Actually, they weren't. You were
No,
surprised.
I was going to say they didn't.
Actually, you weren't. You were the stomach flu. But in response to that change, Layla Halverson now,
Oh, look at that.
and California Assemblyman Patrick Nolan started lobbying very hard to keep Paul, who they described as a cold, calculating killer, in prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I get that.
They said, we're asking everyone to join us with requesting that the Board of Prison Term reopen the Perveler case and revoke his parole in light of the cold-blooded crimes committed by him.
Yeah.
And it turned out that they were not alone in their quest. They also had the support of the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. In a statement to reporters, Deputy District Attorney Steve Souter said, Perveler is performing on paper like a model prisoner, but he himself did not believe that Paul had genuinely reformed in any way.
Yeah.
And openly supported the Halversons' case. So in 1976, Christina Cromwell was actually paroled from prison.
Oh, I knew you were going to tell me
She did not spend a lot of time in there. In the years that followed, though, she did become a key witness in the district attorney's efforts to keep Paul behind bars whenever he became eligible for parole.
Yeah.
And
I mean, what else are you going to do?
at a parole hearing in 1986, when Elena was alive, Christina Cromwell testified for nearly 4 hours. And during that time, she told the board that in 1966, this is crazy, Paul had given his parents a trip to Mexico as an anniversary party, but then tried to have his parents murdered as they traveled between Tijuana and Ensenada.
I'm sorry. He tried to kill his own parents?
Paul's father was shot in the face during the attack, but was unable to identify the shooter, and the case went cold.
Oh, this guy's a fucking monster.
Literally.
He was going way far back.
His parents' anniversary. He was going to have them killed and cash in on the money.
Shit.
Yeah, he's a
cold-blooded.
Yeah. But at the time, it was also revealed that during the attack on Layla, where Paul beat her brutally, Christina was in the car waiting nearby to help Paul flee the scene.
Oh, fuck
Which I'm
her.
like, yeah.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah. Now, all of Paul's subsequent bids...
awful.
It is awful. All of Paul's subsequent bids for parole have been denied, and he remains in prison to this day at Mule Creek Correctional Facility in California.
Damn.
Yes.
That wasn't even intentional. I just meant damn.
In reflecting on the case for the Discovery Channel, executive director of the Los Angeles Police Museum, it's a mouthful, told producers, Paul was from a moneyed family and certainly could have found easier ways to get money.
Yeah.
He said as these attacks went on, each got more and more violent. I don't think he was killing for insurance money. I think Perveler was a stone cold killer.
I think, exactly. I think it started off as a money thing.
Yep.
Like, or what he was trying to think of as a money thing, but there's no way.
I think the money was an added bonus. I think he
it was
liked
too.
the feeling of power of being able to just be like, that person, gone.
And he's obviously like a monster.
I mean,
like
he
was a
literally
monster in
had-
his own marriages. Like, he's a monster.
He had his own parents attacked as an anniversary
His dad was
gift.
shot in the face. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, like wild.
Poor Layla.
I know.
Like, he's a monster.
And then to find out that the woman he was cheating on you with was sitting
waiting
in the car, in the getaway car.
And then she's just out walking around.
Like, what?
That's fucked.
Yeah, scary, scary shit.
What
but
a strange story.
very strange case.
Very interesting.
And who the fuck killed Cheryl?
Well, that's the main takeaway
And
here
who killed Marlon?
is who the fuck is the person who did it?
We don't know. They escaped into the darkness, literally.
Wow.
Which is honestly, like, the scariest shit I've ever heard.
Very haunting.
Yeah. You just wonder who he was connected to and...
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, you don't know how far this goes. Damn.
You just don't. But
We'll never know.
that's that. That's the case for you, and we hope you keep listening.
We hope you
Keep
it.
damn.
Weird. Damn.
But not so weird that all you can say is damn. But I've been there too, so keep it that way.
I can't help it.
Bye, damn.
Damn.
Beavers.